today's video, I will be sharing practices that you can use to bond to your tarot deck and improve your tarot reading practice. But before we get started, I just wanted to give a quick shout out to Keen for sponsoring today's video. If you have not heard of Keen before, they are the leading psychic network which has been providing psychic, tarot, and astrology readings since 1999. Keen has a wide variety of psychics with different gifts, prices, and you get to choose how long you spend with them. Keen is easy to use. Just simply set up an account and then browse through various psychic profiles to decide who you'd like to connect with through either phone call or text. And Keen is kindly offering you guys your first 5 minutes for only $1. I highly recommend trying a few different psychics before finding the one that you'd like to spend the most time with. That way you find the right energetic match. Then once you find a psychic that you truly connect with, you can continue coming back to them for readings in the future. Although we can all develop our intuition and learn practices such as reading tarot, sometimes it is nice to have a reading from a professional. It is often easy to get wrapped up in our own emotion and become biased when we are trying to read for ourselves. I had a beautiful reading through Keen recently that was exactly what I needed. I have been feeling very stuck lately and disconnected from my purpose. I was easily able to connect to a psychic medium that gave me a beautiful reading that renewed my hope and gave me actionable steps to get back on track. This reading then had a domino effect which led me to new opportunities and connections. I honestly feel a renewed level of excitement and trust, so I'm truly grateful to Keen and my psychic advisor for that experience. If you'd like to get started with Keen, you can head to my link trykeen.com/magic unleashed to get your first 5 minutes for only $1. All the information will be linked below in the description box for easy access. Thank you to Keen for sponsoring today's video, and without further ado, let's get into how to bond to your tarot deck. Although a strong reader can really pick up any tarot deck and work with it, there is something to be said about having a tarot deck or maybe a few tarot decks that you really vibe with, that you feel like your energy has almost melded to. Now, this is something that usually comes with time. Sometimes it takes a while to kind of get that relationship with a tarot deck. You know, if you just bought the tarot deck, you may vibe with it right away. You may have felt almost drawn to this tarot deck. Maybe it's the energy, maybe it's the art. There's something that pulled you in. There's something that made you want to get that tarot deck in the first place. But there is something to be said about spending a significant amount of time and using different practices to really get to know the energy of the deck. And once you do that more often, you'll start to feel like the communication between you and your tarot deck starts to get stronger, that you kind of like understand each other more. Almost like the tarot deck is alive in some way. Even if you don't believe that necessarily, there is something to be said about feeling like your energy is melding with the deck. And you know, you might feel like that way with some decks and then others not so much. I have a large deck collection, and I can certainly say that some decks just meld better with me than other decks. Some of them I just really vibe with, and I just feel like the communication and the messages are so clear. But sometimes that's not always the case for every single deck, and sometimes you got to do a little bit more work. Or even if you feel like you super connect with this deck, it is just useful and helpful to use different practices and spend extra time with the deck, because it just improves your readings in the long run. So just to kind of use this deck as an example, this is the Earth Women Tarot by Tarnellis. I did a walkthrough of this deck recently in a video if you're interested. This is the latest one that I've purchased. It is one that I felt an instant connection with because it was on my wish list for a very long time. But what's next? Working with this deck more often and doing the practices that I'm going to show you guys in this video, this is going to help strengthen my connection with this deck even more. And in the long run, it's just going to improve my readings, not just for myself, but if I choose to read for other people, it's going to help with that too. First thing I want to talk about is interviewing your tarot deck. Now, there's so many different spreads out there, I am sure of, about interviewing your tarot deck, because this is not like a new practice. I didn't make this up myself. It's not revolutionary in any way, but I did come up with my own interview your tarot deck spread that I'd like to share with you guys that you can do with your new tarot deck. Or honestly, it doesn't have to be a new tarot deck. It doesn't have to be tarot either, technically. It could be an oracle too. Any deck that you want to get to know better. It could be something that you've had in your collection for a while that you feel like you haven't given it enough time to really understand it. So the first card in this spread is, why have you entered my life at this time? I feel like most decks have some sort of purpose in our life, especially if we purchased them because we felt extremely drawn to them. We felt like we needed to pick up this deck. Then I find usually they do play a specific role in our life. There's some sort of message, there's some some sort of guidance that we're supposed to get from the deck. Now, if you're just somebody who impulse buys like every single deck that comes out, maybe not every single deck is going to have that big of an impact on you, or, you know, have that great of a purpose in your life. The second card that you would pull is, what lesson have you come to teach me? I think there's lessons that we can learn from all of our tarot decks, and this is a really great question that you can ask to really get to the root of what this tarot deck has come to teach you. Now, the next three cards here are a little bit more specific to the energy of the deck, so you can really understand the deck more. The third card is, what is your strength as a deck? I believe that every deck has some sort of strength, some sort of energy that they're really good at bringing out. Which brings me to the fourth card, what are your limitations? And I feel like these are just really two good core questions to be interviewing your deck with. And finally, the last card is, how would you describe your personality as a deck? The thing with these questions is, this is something that you can do, you know, at other points in your journey with your card deck. You can interview it every now and then. You can ask it new questions if you wanted to, but I think this is definitely something that is great to get started with a new deck, or just a deck that you want to get to know a little bit better. Now, I highly recommend having a journal that is dedicated to writing down your readings and for working with your tarot decks, card decks. This journal here is the journal that I use to write all my readings, and I did do an interview recently of my new Earth Women tarot deck, just to kind of give you an idea of how this kind of goes. What I like to do is write down the questions, so the questions I gave you, but also I'll write down the cards I pulled. So I don't know if you can kind of see that, but I wrote down all the cards. For the first card, like I said, the question is, why have you entered my life at this time? And the card that I pulled was the Nine of Cups in reverse. I wrote, this deck has come to remind me to be patient, to believe in myself and trust the process, as good things take time to cultivate. I've been feeling down lately, so this is a reminder to be grateful for everything I am blessed with now, while also recognizing that things are always evolving and growing. Like the mushrooms in this card, which actually, you know what? Let me actually show you the card that I pulled while I'm explaining this, so then you can understand my interpretation of the imagery. All right, that took a moment, but this is the card I pulled. So this is the Nine of Cups, has a bunch of mushrooms, some butterflies, some moons, but I did pull it in reverse. So when I saw this card, I wrote, like the mushrooms in this card, they grow so much underground, hidden, before you see the fruiting bodies on the surface. The mycelium is vast and it's strong. Things are manifesting behind the scenes in the universe before I can fully see it in my life. Things take time. So I feel like this deck came into my life to remind me that. That is just one of the 5 card pulls, and that's what that meant to me. So this is a simple exercise that you can do with your deck. So my next tip for bonding with your tarot deck would be to actually just bring it with you basically everywhere you go. Bring it with you around during the day. Keep it in your purse. I am actually currently on the hunt for a wrap, like a really nice tarot wrap that's very earthy that goes along with this theme. As much as I love the box, it is bulky to put a tarot deck in its box in your purse and carry it like that. It is nice to have some sort of tarot bag or wrap that you can use when you bring it with you. But I think there is something to be said about, you know, bringing a deck around with you so that you are tempted to hold it and shuffle it throughout the day. So you are tempted to pull a card here and there. The longer and more time you spend with the deck, the more bonded you are going to become with the deck. So this is something that is super simple, but can also really benefit your bond with your tarot and your practice. Along with bringing the deck with you, consistently using it as your deck of choice is also going to be very beneficial. I'm not saying that you can't use your other decks. You can even mix, you know, your decks together. I often will use more than one deck at once. I love combining tarot cards with oracle cards in my readings. However, if you are really wanting to bond with a tarot deck or any deck that you're currently working on bonding with, it is recommended to use it as much as possible. So I would say daily card pulls are a really great option for that. Even if you don't have time to do an elaborate reading every single day, like, let's be real, a lot of us are adults that are barely, you know, getting everything done. We're working our 9 to 5s. It's hard to get around to read for yourself all the time. So sometimes just the simple act of pulling a single card first thing in the morning or maybe even right before you go to bed can be a really great daily practice. Not only does it help you bond with your deck, but it also helps you get to know the artwork and the symbolism of the cards. And yes, if you are already a tarot reader, you've learned the tarot, you know the meaning of the cards, you're familiar with that, but every deck portrays the symbolism, the meanings with different images. So it's going to vary a lot, and the only way you're going to really be able to dive in and understand the deep meaning beneath, all the images and the colors and everything about the deck is if you spend a lot of time with it. And that leads me into my next point, which is to journal your readings. You can journal your daily card pulls. You can journal your more elaborate spreads. I personally find that I will absorb my readings and better understand them and better interpret them for myself specifically. Reading for other people is a little bit different, but I find when you're reading for yourself, it is really easy to kind of get a little bit in your head or stuck in your emotions. And I feel like the act of writing something down is very effective. It helps you to really dive in and interpret in a more in-depth way. I feel like it helps to get a little bit out of your emotions, and it's the act of just writing, it's very intuitive. It's very intuitive. I feel like there's certain things that sometimes I pick up on for my own readings more when I write it down than if I just, were to think it in my mind or just say it out loud. Like just looking at the cards silently, I feel like is less effective when reading for yourself and also getting to know the cards, understanding the deck, than it is writing it down. And when you write it down, you really point out, well, I think the mushrooms, like I mentioned in this example, or I think the flowers in this card mean this. The more you write these things down, and then also once you have it written down, you can revisit your readings later. I think that's also very powerful because sometimes when you read, I don't know if this happens to you guys, but it happens to me. When I read cards, often it's like a big blur. So I do the reading and then 10 minutes later, I'm like, what the heck did I just say? What just happened? It's like you're in channel mode, things come through, but then after it's done, you forget what you've said. I love writing down card readings for the reason that I can go back and read it over again, and it really solidifies what the message was. So not only does writing it down improve your readings and help you to gain more benefit from your readings, but also it's going to help you get to know the cards better too, and maybe pick up on details that you didn't really pick up on before. It really encourages you to go deeper in the cards. The fifth tip that I want to share with you guys is when you're bonding with a tarot deck, what other things do we want to be doing? Well, we want to be caring for the deck. We want to be caring for the energy of the deck. You want to cleanse it. You want to charge it, just like you would take care of your own energy. You want to take care of the energy of the deck because, you're going to be reading at all sorts of times. You're going to be reading when you're feeling sad, depressed, anxious, even happy. But there's going to be different emotions that you're going to go in with reading this card deck. Not just that, but you might read for other people and they may have other heavy energies that you've been exposed to, that your deck's been exposed to. How do you cleanse your deck? There's so many different ways you can cleanse your deck, and you can accommodate, based on what you have available for you. So, a lot of people will cleanse their deck with smoke, be it sage or Palo Santo, or there's so many other types of things that you can burn that aren't those. Those are, common ones. I do recommend, using other forms of sage other than white sage because it's often over-harvested, overused, and that's a problem. There are so many different types of sage. There's so many different herb bundles out there. You can use incense too, actually. A lot of people will use incense to cleanse their deck. If you can't use smoke like me, I will use smoke if I can go outside. It's winter right now. It's very cold. I'm not going outside. So right now, any sort of smoke cleansing, incense, candles are on hold for me. I can't use them inside the house because I have birds. I look for other ways to cleanse. Some people will knock on the cards. Some people will use sound cleansing. You can do so many different things. You can use singing bowls, you can use a rattle, you can use a drum. Just get creative. Not everyone's gonna have access to the same thing, so use what you have. As far as charging goes, there's so many different ways to charge your deck. Honestly, my go-to is just placing a crystal on top of it. I really like selenite. Here's a piece of selenite. You just place it like that. I like selenite specifically because it does have cleansing properties, but is also great to charge as well. It kind of has both. Selenite just brings good energy all around. It's good to have in your space, and it doesn't really hold on to the negative energy itself. So it's just a very pure energy. So I like to do that. That is a simple way to charge your deck, but you can use any crystal that you'd like to do that. You can also leave them out in the moonlight. So maybe it's a full moon. You would leave it on the ledge by your window, and then just make sure you take it down from the window before the sun rises. Some people believe it's like an energetic thing that you just leave it out for the moon. I mean, it's not the end of the world if you forget, but also I wouldn't leave it on the windowsill all day because the sun is going to bleach the coloring of the artwork. So try not to leave your cards out in the sun too much, although some people might like to utilize the sun for charging. I just wouldn't use it for too long. Or keep it in your bag. Put it in a tarot bag and then put it out in the sun. Let the heat of the sun charge it. The sun's a very active energy, but just don't let the artwork get ruined and bleached by the sun. Now the next practice that I want to give you is kind of like a journaling practice that you can do. It's to really spend time with each card of the deck. Now you can do this by simply just pulling a card and letting it be part of your single card pull practice, or you can actually go in order. If you wanted, you can do the entire deck in order from the major arcana all the way through the minors, just to get used to every single card. But what you're going to do is you're going to pull the card and then you're going to write down every single piece of symbolism that you see. You know, like what do we see on this card here? Well, we have a beautiful sunset sky. There's mountains. I see some trees and hills. I see some fog. There's a hand coming out of the fog. There's a sword. There's a crown. And then look at, there's leaves that are, you know, coming off the crown. And there's a jewel. And the jewel is turquoise and green. Like, how many things do you notice in the card? Like, write them all down. How many things do you notice? How many details? What sticks out to you? And then what do these mean to you? What do all these things represent? And then what do they represent in terms of the relationship to the meaning of the card, right? Because like, okay, you can ask yourself, what does the Ace of Swords mean? And then what do all of these little symbols have to do with that? What do these mean in relationship to that? These are just ways that you can really get to know your card more. So when you're pulling the cards and doing a reading later, little details, they stick out to you more. You start to grow a relationship and an understanding of the meaning of the cards a little bit more. Now, not only are we getting into the symbolic details and the meaning of the cards, now let's also ask ourselves, how does it make you feel? Let me just pull a card, this one, Page of Pentacles. So let's just do this right now. So when you see this card, this Page of Pentacles, how does that card make you feel? If you want, you guys can like put it down in the comment section. Just write down exactly how you feel when you see this card. Is there specific details? Is there specific symbolism that stands out to you? Is there something specific that evokes an emotion for you? Does it remind you of something in your life? Does it remind you of a memory? These are questions that you can start to ask yourself to really get to the core of the card. And by doing this, you are bonding to the imagery of the card because you're finding more personal connections to the artwork, to the deck. So then when you read it, it's going to be a deeper experience. Those are just a couple of questions to get started. There's so many different questions that you could think of to ask yourself about a card. Maybe you're a very artsy person. Maybe you're creative. Maybe you're a musician. Maybe you pull a card and you write a song about it, or a poem. Like, this is another really cool exercise that you can do. That was basically the core of what I wanted to share with you guys today. But I just want to show you that you can get very creative, and any of these things that you do, any of these practices are going to evidently make you feel more connected and confident too with reading your deck. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you found these tips helpful for you. Thank you again to Keen for sponsoring today's video. Remember to head to my link below if you guys wanted to check that out. I hope you guys have a beautiful day or night whenever you're watching this, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye bye.